Good evening, everyone. Hugs and stitches to you. We're going to have a wonderful evening tonight. We have a new update to be released this week. It does have some wonderful new features in it. But you know what? Seems like all we do is cover new features and everything that's always coming out and going to happen with the software. So I'm going to show you a couple of the new features, but then I'm going to jump in and I want to start teaching again in this process. There was a while there we were teaching techniques and parts of the process. I think with the advent of FTC-U, we've gotten a little bit carried away with everything new that's coming and how amazing everything is. So we're going to show you a few new amazing features that have happened and that are coming in the new update. But then we're going to jump into a little process that I'm just going to call Teach a Technique. The first thing, though, I want to talk about, a nice advancement that's taken place. Is something on? Kathy, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can.
Okay. One of the nice things, we've now given you a whole new area of custom shapes, an easier way to access backdrops that are within our software, also artwork library. Let me jump into the custom shapes, though. One thing that we're real excited about, when you bring in a custom shape, it comes in as artwork. You see it over here in the sequence view. You know that's a piece of artwork, meaning like an AI file or such. Those files can now be written right to the cutter system. So right now you can hit File and export your artwork. So if you have one of the brother scan and cuts, or the what's some of the other ones? The SVG, the FCM formats, or your AI files. You now have all the file formats for all the standard cutters that are out there. This is wonderful because you can now save this cutting line. You can send it to your, let's say, your scan and cut. Then once done and saved and selected still, very simply now, you can just turn that right into your applique design right there, and the entire process is done and completed. Now, let me show you something that's new also, something that's been added. It's been an enhancement. If we now click on it, you'll now see that it does now show as all three colors in the applique. So you've got your tack down line or your placement line, your tack down line, and then your top stitch. And of course you do know now that in your applique, when you go into your applique extra, that you do have the tack down line from a run. You can also go to a zigzag. That's been an improvement that's been there for a while, but I love to bring it up because it is wonderful. Look, we've made a couple of really nice new features. Also, your placement stitch length. Just one second. Oh, your fabric style. I'm so sorry. Thank you, DJ. We now also have in your applique, you have your fabric. You can implant your own fabrics, and you have your fabrics on here. Now, you can rotate, crop, you can remove, add, but you can just come in there, and now you can just apply. Pick your fabric and apply them and up the, excuse me. I got to hit OK, and up your fabric will come. It's a brand new enhancement. They just got the fabric in there. Thank you, DJ. I would have passed that one by. So, and you do have the ability to add your own fabrics from all those scraps of fabrics that you have in all those boxes that you have, ladies. Now, a wonderful thing has happened in text. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the text files. We've added 12 new text design styles, but many of the text now have, let me just enlarge this so you can see it on the full screen to fit. You'll see a little O next to it, okay? When you see that little O to the next, let's do dill pickle. I think that one looks good. And let's type my name, Floriani, up here. And click apply. When you see that little O up there, right up here under style, you now have the ability to do it as a run stitch border. And this is going to expand, folks, but this is amazing. And many of the fonts now, and I believe, was it all 12, DJ? I think there was something like 25 new ones, but 12 or so have this ability, and it always has just a little O to the next of it. And the minute that you have that there and you see that, you can now do that font. If you want to still just make it a satin stitch or the default, you can put it in there. It'll do it as the default, as the satin stitch, or you can do it as an outline. We also have some with applique, but I'm not going to take the time to show you, but you do have some applique ability coming along very quickly with that update also. Another nice thing that comes up now, when you have an image that's been digitized, before when we used to create an area and then you would highlight it, when you highlighted it, it would just put a box behind it. Now it turns another color. Under Tools and under Preferences and under View, you now have the ability to change it to whatever color you'd like it to be. So now when you do any sort of a select, it will actually select in color as opposed to just the box being put around that. I was really, really very happy with that one. There's been so many updates done in this last version, so many new features and enhancements. The software automatically converting to outline is a default now. It changes units inside the transform box. That's a really neat feature. When you want to size designs and you go into transfer, remember I've always said I like to size in inches, but I work metrically. Well, now you can select inches, and it will always keep the sizing or the transformation in inches, yet everything that I come in and still measure and such will always still be in metric. So it allows you to work metrically and size in inches just by simply going into the transfer box. Look, I want to get right into teaching you right now. And what I want to teach you, because again, within every release that we do, there are so many new features. It's time to let the learning start. March, we're releasing a brand new series of designs, and these are floral designs called Floral Shadows. What I'd like to teach you to do tonight is shadow work the Floriani way, okay? Now, this is the entire series of designs to be released for sale in March. What I'm going to bring up now, though, is I'm going to bring up the instructions for this. And we're going to scroll here to the top. Let me explain something about shadow work initially, folks. Shadow work was around very early in the process of mechanized embroidery. And actually, my grandfather, August Floriani, had an amazing amount to do. He did a lot of the preliminary work with shadow work. If you don't know what shadow work is, it's stitching that's done on a material that will be dissipated. In this case, it'll be on our wet and gone, then covered with another piece of material, and then top stitch finishing, tying in the two together. So you get a shadowing effect. You get background stitches actually behind the material, shadowed by the material, and then top stitching. It is an amazing effect. Let me kind of explain how it's done. I'm going to explain this once at a time. Now, whenever you purchase the designs, you will get the instructions for it. I'm going to just read you a set of instructions, but then we're going to go ahead and do one right within the software. The way that this works is, first of all, you place one piece of wet and gone tacky stabilizer in your embroidery frame, paper side up. So you've taken an entire piece of wet and gone tacky, paper side up in your frame. Score the release paper and peel it back to the edge of the hoop, revealing the entire surface of the stabilizer. Now, very important at this point, find and mark the center of your hoop. Use a ruler and a fabric-safe marking pen, such as a water-soluble pen or a heat fix-on pen. Now, once you've got the marking, or once you're centered in the hoop, I want you to then lay a piece of regular wet and gone stabilizer down onto the tacky stabilizer. So, you've got a piece of wet and gone tacky covering the entire hoop. You cut a piece of just normal Wet n Gone, making sure the piece of Wet n Gone stabilizer is slightly larger than the overall design you're about to stitch. You certainly want to make sure the shadow work portion of the design will stitch onto the Wet n Gone stabilizer completely. You can see over here where we've marked it up here, marked the center. Here we've put the piece of Wet n Gone, not the tacky now, just normal Wet n Gone, centered in the hoop, ensuring that, number 5, the entire design that is going to be shadowed will fit on the Wet n Gone. You don't want it to go off onto the tacky. You want it to stay on the Wet n Gone. At that point, you'll stop the machine and you lay your sheer material. So after the shadow work object stitch onto the Wet n Gone stabilizer, position your fabric over the entire design. Again, this could be organza. This could be a very, very lightweight cotton. Make sure the fabric is held in place by the Wet n Gone tacky stabilizer around the perimeter before continuing. Very important. This ensures that the fabric will not shift when the embroidering the top stitches. 7th and final, stitch out the remaining colors and your design should look similar to the inside the hoop when the stitching is complete. It's amazing. Let me come down to the bottom. The way the instructions will come, look, color 1 and color 2 is your shadow work portion. That is what is to be stitched on your Wet n Gone tacky with a piece of Wet n Gone sat down on top of it. The entire design on top of that Wet n Gone. You then place your sheer material on top of that and you stitch color 3, 4, and 5. Your decorative stitching. When you're done, it is absolutely amazing. The work just shadows through and the effect that you get, you have this background stitching coming through this base material. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's show you how we stitch one, okay? I'm going to go ahead and bring up a design. Let's go ahead and bring up a design. And I have the instructions for this we'll post too. But I'm going to go ahead and bring up, let's bring up this clover, okay? I'm going to open up this clover design. Now, this is so very, very simple to do. I have the clover design open. I'm going to grab at this point in time the magic wand. Magic wand, the orange one, up here on the right-hand side of the toolbar. Select your magic wand, come inside the clover, and simply left-click, okay? At this point in time, I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to paste, okay?
Question.
Yes, hon.
Was artwork you brought up, or a backdrop?
Exactly, Kathy. That was a backdrop. In fact, you know what? I'll back off and I'll start again. If I would have brought up a piece of artwork or a custom shape, and I'll bring up like a custom shape here, you'll see the item over here in the sequence view. Anytime you're working with a custom shape or a piece of artwork, artwork would be the same thing. Those are files that are vector-based files. So if I bring in a piece of artwork or if I bring in a custom shape, those are files, and you know because right away it shows in the sequence view. But when I'm working with backdrop files, which are pixelated files, when I open them up, you have nothing in the sequence view, okay? These are just files that we could scan in from a coloring book, that we could have just downloaded off of the internet. So as I open it up, there's nothing over here in the sequence view. Okay, and that's the easiest way to tell the difference between artwork files, vectorized files, or files that are pixelated files, backdrop files, okay? Again, at this point in time, grab the orange magic wand, get right onto the, grab the orange magic wand, get onto the clover, click it. I can select it. I'm simply going to copy now, and I'm going to paste. I'm going to take the first two, I'm going to take the first two, and I'm going to copy it one more time, and I'm going to paste it one more time. So now I've got 3, okay? At this point in time, I'm going to select, now hold down the Control key, I'm going to select the first 2 clovers, okay? With the selection tool selected, I can now come down to the bottom bar and I'm simply going to hit Standard Fill. What we're going to do is put 2 fills on top of each other. So I'm going to left click on that. Now, so that you see what happens is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of the backdrop tool by clicking on the backdrop tool, coming over and show backdrop, just click on that and the backdrop is gone. So now I've got 2 fills there. I'm going to once again select both of them and you'll notice they highlighted to the red. So I've selected both of my fills and in my properties box I'm going to number 1 change the density to a very light density of 2. That's going to be a very open fill. I'm going to go into the underlay feature. And I'm going to turn off the underlay. You don't want underlay, okay, underneath your shadow work. So to hide it completely, I'm also going to put on my edge travel. So all underlay would walk along the edge. We can click apply at that time, but we're not done yet, okay? Excuse me. I've got to get the edge walk on, edge travel, and apply it. I'm also going to go into pull and push compensation, and I'm going to add an absolute value. I'm going to backspace of 6. My normal pull compensation on fill stitches is around 3 to 5 tenths as I normally teach. I'm going to add a little more. I'm going to take it up to 6 because what we're going to do now, let me go ahead and apply that. And we've got one other thing to do. I'm going to grab one of those fills and I'm going to come to the shape tool over here on the far left edit bar. And I'm going to come to the shape and I'm going to right click and I'm going to set the angle to 90 degrees. Because now what I have is a 0 and a 90 degree angle, fill stitch, open fill, and then that final outline that we put on as artwork, we're going to turn into a run stitch. But not just a run stitch. Once it's been made a run, we're going to come up and turn that single run into a bean stitch, and I'm going to do it 7 times. And very important, while it's still selected, I'm going to change the color to a little darker color on that. Oops, I'm sorry. I needed to hit apply. We're going to make it a 7-time run. I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to have the color already set to that color, okay? Now, I'm going to slow redraw because basically we're done. So imagine now, and I'll show you in the instructions in just a moment, we've put down a piece of wet and gone tacky in the hoop. What begins to run, and we've to put down a piece of wet and gone slightly larger than the shape of than the size of the clover. This is the understitching. Because we've pulled out the underlay, all we have is edge walk underlay. It'll stop at this point. We'll put the sheer material on top, or excuse me, it's still doing that. After it does this second layer of fill, it stops right there. Once it stops, now it starts to do the bean stitch border, which goes on top of the sheer fabric, and you have the Floriani way of doing shadow work. Let me go ahead and pull this up. It'll make a little more sense when I do this. Okay, here we started with one piece of wet and gone tacky stabilizer. This is the effect that you're going to get. You see it much clearer here. Okay, we peel it back. We cut out and we mark the center. We put a piece of wet and gone on top of it. So a regular piece of wet and gone is placed on top of it. We then take the clover and we stitch the entire clover, both fills. At that point, it stops. We'll lay the sheer fabric on top and we do the bean stitch border, which allows the rest of it to shadow through. And again, the important part was that pull. By putting that pull in there, it allows that bean stitch to catch the edge underneath, so when all the wet and gone is dissipated, it still adheres to the back of it. It's such a very, very simple technique, and you can apply it to so many designs. The idea is we bring up designs, and you know what? We'll bring up just that. I'm going to go ahead and bring up just that one we said to the cutting, like that bird design. We bring up that bird design, okay? Once that design is there, all we've got to do, because now here's a piece of artwork, is we're just going to do 2 fills. We'll do a select. Don't even need it. It's already selected. I do my standard fill. I'm going to put another fill on top of it, okay? Just a copy and a paste. There's my second fill. And then I'm going to actually throw another one, or I can take that same one and throw one more, so we'll make 3. We'll take that third fill and we're going to make that a run. We take the first 2 fills, we'll highlight them. The idea is with almost any shape, you have all of the stitch techniques of fill, of blends, of bleeding and such. But all we've got to do here again is we come in, change our density to 2, take our underlay out, hit apply once you do that. Also edge travel, apply. Go into your pull compensation, an absolute value of 0.6, excuse me, of 0.6. Click apply again. Go to the second bird down here, go into shape, come into here, right click and set the angle at 90 degrees. Go to your run stitch, make sure that it's a bean. In fact, you know what? Instead of the bean stitch, why don't we go ahead and turn this back into, let it be a single run. While it's selected though, let's turn this one into a steel stitch. And you can put a steel stitch around it just that quick. Want it to be another color once you've selected on it, just select whatever color you want it to be, and you've got the same effect. So again, we put down our wet and gone tacky, put down a piece of wet and gone on top of it. We run both fills running both directions. It stops, put your sheer material on top. Shadow work the Floriani way. It's just so darn simple, folks. You can do this same type of effect. You don't always have to do it with fills. You can come in there and apply, instead of fill stitches, you can use motif stitching. You can do almost anything and allow it to shadow through. The biggest thing is that after that initial stitching is done, you want that outside border to run around the outside on top, catching into. That's why, again, that pull compensation is so critical, to add sufficient pull compensation.